So it's Tuesday evening, and the Createquity editorial team is gathered to discuss the day at the GIA 2013 conference.
The whole idea behind this conference was that they wanted to do something a little bit different. So they had these idea lab sessions, well, actually presentations at the breakfast session this morning, and then had some salons sort of following on from that. And Daniel went to one of those, and so they'll be doing the same thing tomorrow, so we can talk more about it. Have a kind of a through line to some of our experiences this morning and into the afternoon, which was arts and social justice. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit. So I'd say all of the Idea Lab sessions that we had today really kind of had something to do with arts and social justice. Fabiana Rodriguez talked about some of the work that she's done on activism in the immigrant community, and we had several others talk about kind of more from a personal artistic standpoint, the work that they were doing. Then you went to a session continuing with Fabiana, right?
That's right. Which was really fascinating. I think what I learned in that session is that social movements broadly, the ones that we hear about all the time in the news politically, immigration, healthcare reform, climate change, have really not even attempted to deploy their cultural resources strategically. So we've all seen art related to some of these social movements, but it's kind of one-off. It's kind of hit or miss. It's not something that is organized. I thought Fabiana said something really interesting in that session, which was that our cultural resources are too important to go unorganized. And so something she's been trying to do with Culture Strike, which is a nonprofit that she works with, is to connect specifically the immigration reform community, which is very policy-oriented, is trying to make legislative victories happen right now at the national level and at state levels, with artists who are going to be thinking longer term, who 10 years from now, they may be the ones who shift the culture to a point where it's uncool to be anti-immigrant if you're in high school, the way that now we start to hear about it's being uncool to be homophobic if you're a high schooler at least in certain parts of the country.
Yeah, I mean, so that really gets to this idea of sort of creating systemic change through the arts. Right. And that topic came up as well in a session that I attended on called Invisible to Visible, and that was all about Native artists, and it came up in the context of talking about how the funding that is provided for initiatives like that often isn't sort of sufficient to really address systemic change. And so we kind of had a little bit of, in the Q&A portion, a little bit of dialogue around, so what would be necessary for that? Mm-hmm. And I found it interesting how it was a little bit difficult even though I really appreciated the session and thought it was great actually, for that particular question, I felt it seemed like it was a little bit difficult for the speakers to articulate what it was exactly that what the systemic change was that they were looking for. But that being said, it seems like in the case of Fabiana's work, she's really thinking about kind of, there is a very specific goal in mind, of changing the dialogue around immigration, and here are the specific ways in which art can help, basically better than any other kind of intervention you could think of. Right. So then later on we had, I really appreciate, I don't know about you guys, I really appreciated the lunch keynote that we had for that. She was
keynote. Awesome. So inspiring.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know. How can we describe it for our viewers here?
Playwright, and it was
Chiara Allegria Hudes.
Yes, fabulous speaker, and I actually thought that the structure of how she structured her speech was absolutely brilliant. The first half was this sort of beautiful, very emotional, soulful meditation on her upbringing and how she evolved as an artist based on her experience growing up in Philadelphia, in this very multicultural neighborhood, and all the challenges that she encountered, and the inspiration that she gathered along the way. And then about halfway through, there was this pivot to, so that was the nonlinear description,
right.
And now here's the linear description of how I got to where I am right now. And then it turned into, I got this fellowship, and it was this long, and that allowed me to do these things. And at one point, she talked about her artistic, I think it was her artistic work, or the inspiration behind it being as slippery as glitter. And the juxtaposition of the slippery as glitter with the very sort of formal, structured, granty kinds of things that allowed her to get to where she is today was really, really interesting. And I think it speaks to what we all, the challenges that we all face, trying to come up with these very formal, structured programs that can allow the slippery glitter to flourish.
And she actually said, that how can you quantify, how can you sort of put in the box of a grant program that has 18-month timelines and specific deadline, this whole thing, these kinds of impacts and influences that can take years to develop. I feel like our field kind of has this weird dance around evaluation and data and information, because it's kind of like, we want it to happen, and we want the answers, but we're not really willing to commit to making sure that that those answers are as robust as possible. And
Do we have a theme for Houston yet next year?
Some suggestions may be coming in.
The data dance.
Exactly.
The data
I mean,
dance.
well, it's funny. It's like I think everybody was kind of talking about evaluation, data collection, and stuff at these kinds of convenings maybe like a decade ago. And then I don't know if it was that people thought it was that conversation was over, or that we figured it out, or whatever. But I don't think we figured it out. I think there's still a lot to figure out.
We haven't figured it out. Yeah, I definitely heard a lot of people in the room today talking about how they haven't figured it out, and they don't know who has figured it out.
Right.
They're all sitting there being like, we don't know how to do it. We're asking other people to do it. We hope they can tell us how to do it.
Yeah. And this stuff is hard. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's not surprising that we don't have the formula yet.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does seem like there are steps that we could be taking as a field to move the needle forward that that I don't see being taken for whatever reason.
Right.
Things like, for example, comparing grantees to non-grantees. People who applied to the program, some of them got a grant, some of them didn't get a grant. You want to measure the effectiveness of the grant, see what happened to people who didn't get the grant, for example.
But going back to what we were saying earlier about the keynote and this plea for funders to create a space for this work to happen, I do wonder whether or not her experience would have been different if she had known that she will be evaluated at the end of this.
That's true. That is a good point. Yeah.
So you must produce X.
Well, yeah, and the whole thing that we heard about this, the importance of no strings attached.
Right.
Even if it's not strings attached, even if it's unrestricted money, where you don't have to spend it on something specific. If you have to participate in an evaluation process, then there are still strings attached, because you're going to be asked for information. Right. You're going to have to. Anyway, so that was our day 2 at GIA 2013. We will be bringing you our final wrap up tomorrow, and in the meantime, Godspeed.